Can you hear me now? Hey, there we go. Yeah. Yeah. This morning we're going to start in Job chapter 22, but before we do, I did not know till a few minutes ago that I use my phone. I thought I brought this so I could stay in Job, but I guess this is sometimes if you get a notification, which I really don't get too many notifications because I don't live with my phone, but it's nice to have the Bible app on there. I do like that. I know Michael doesn't, but I do use it a lot. So if you hear a buzz, I apologize. If it gets too annoying, which I seriously doubt it does, I'll shut it off. So hopefully we don't get any notifications. Now that I say they don't ever get notifications, I'll probably get 100 of them today through a group text at work, which I wish I could get out of, but I'm not smart enough to figure that out either. Before we get started, I'm going to ask David Carroll to say a prayer for us. Thank you, David. Like I said, Job 22. Other thing, if you notice, and maybe Trace will hear me over the intercom, the bulletin does say November. It is December 3rd. So I'll save her a lot of hassle, people telling her that it's the wrong. Switching over months sometimes can be, short weeks can be quick to overlook those things, because with me this morning, I'll tell myself this morning, I'm looking over it, I'm like, I was looking at my notes, I'm like, that don't make no sense to that verse. And so I kept reading, I went to different, to versions, and I'm like, oh, that's because I'm looking on my wrong notes for the wrong chapter. That's why it didn't make sense to me. So that can run in our household, being easily confused. The other thing this morning, I don't know what, I was hoping it was the book of Job that Michael wrote a book about, but Trace told me that Michael Morgan wrote a book. So you'll have to ask him what it was. I was hoping it was the book of Job on that. That way he could teach us this morning. Okay, we're going to start out verse 1 through 11. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, can a man be profitable to God? Surely he who is wise is profitable to himself. Is it any pleasure to the Almighty if you are in the right? Or is it gain to him if you make your ways blameless? Is it for your fear of him that he reproves you and enters into judgment with you? Is not your evil abundant? There is no end to your iniquities. For you have exacted pledges of your brothers for nothing, and stripped the naked their clothing. You have given no water to the weary to drink, and you have withheld bread from the hungry. The man with the power possessed the land, and the favored man lived in it. You have sent widows away empty, and the arms of the fatherless were crushed. Therefore snares are all around you, and sudden terror overwhelms you, or darkness so that you cannot see, and a flood of waters cover you. From last week, of course, I was at work. From last week, we can sense Job's getting a little bit more irritated. When you're accused of something that you didn't do, wouldn't you agree that you would be a little bit more irritated with? Me personally speaking, yeah, when you know you're in the right and someone's accusing you of doing something you didn't do, it kind of gets personal. So typically, human response is, here's Eliphaz. He was the first one to speak. So tradition is typically the oldest would speak. So he might have been older than Job. We don't know. He could have been younger. We don't know that. But he would have been a man of a few years. He would be up there in age, and he was well respected because he was the first to speak. So Job, in natural response, natural human response is to say, hey, listen to me. if you go back to verse 1, because I didn't know where you guys would end, and that's where I'd started before that. But the thing I can imagine, Job said, now listen to me. I can imagine if you had a little kid, when you say that, listen to me, either grab him by the shoulders, or have you ever grabbed your kid by the face, make sure you get that eye-to-eye contact, right? Why would you do that? Because you want to make sure they was paying attention to you. Job was doing that. And because the three friends thought they were the ones in the correct side, here Eliphaz is going to give what we call comeuppance. If no one knows that, talk to me afterwards. That might be my hick coming out of me. He is going to let him know, get specific, and that's what we've done here in the first few verses. If you look, I got loud real quick. I'm going to move that down. Maybe I won't blast your eardrums out here. It talks about here, he's going on the defensive, Eliphaz is here, and he starts saying, using the word you. Normally when you point to someone and say, you did this, you did that, it puts people on the defensive, and Eliphaz is going to let Job know that we need to let you know exactly what you've done wrong. Even though they don't know what he's done wrong, they're just in that mindset that we've seen so far that God punishes the wicked. And God punishes the wicked right now, and we find out through time and age that is not always true. Verse 3, it says here, is it any pleasure to the Almighty if you are in the right, or is it gain to him if you make your ways blameless? You know, the first you in there, I put on there, can we make God happy? Have you ever really thought about that? Can we make God happy? And I'll give you a little bit, you don't have to answer that out loud. But anyhow, I can remember years ago going through marriage, counseling. And maybe Tracy remembers this part of that. I don't tell Roger since he's not here if you see him later on. Well, I guess we will. But anyhow, I can remember him telling me that there's one thing you need to learn is you and you yourself are only responsible for your happiness in marriage. Can we do good things that pleases God? Absolutely we can. You know, the thing that we ask, and this is when Christ was talking in Matthew chapter 22, verse 37. What's the first and greatest commandment? Love what? Yeah. Soul, mind, and heart, right? We're to love God, right? Of course, then Jesus went on to explain the second one. We're to love God. Why? Why we love God? Because he does so much for us, right? Exactly. He does so much for us. No greater love, than lay your life down for a friend. Jesus laid his life down. This was not known to them back then. But because we don't know totally the background of how much they would have known, we do know from the verse part of it that Job did know sacrifice. He knew his kids weren't perfect. Why else would he have sacrificed? He did just in case they did some unknown sin. So here, Eliphaz was asked him, can we please God? Because they still have that mindset is God's punishing you because you did something wicked. And of course, Job knows he didn't, that he did not. It says, verse 6 says some of the things that he falsely accused him of. He exacted pledges of your brothers for nothing and stripped the naked of their clothing. I'd write down here Deuteronomy 24 in verse 10 through 13 when it talks about this. It says, when you make your neighbor a loan of any sort, you shall not go into his house to collect his pledge. You shall stand outside, and the man to whom you make the loan shall bring the pledge out to you. And if he is a poor man, you shall not keep or sleep in his pledge. You shall restore to him the pledge as the sun sets, that he may sleep in his cloak and bless you. It shall be righteous for you before the Lord your God. Here, one of the big accusations is you took something from one of your fellow mankind and kept it. Basically, if he kept it from the poor person, their cloak that they normally used as, we know used as a blanket, that we would call a blanket today, they got cold that night. He's basically accusing Job of that. Verse 7, you have given no water to the weary, and you have withheld bread from the hungry. If you would, turn to Matthew 25. starting in verse 41. Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you cursed, into eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not clothe me, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then the Lord will also answer, saying, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger or naked, or sick or in prison, and did not minister to you?" Then he will answer them, saying, "Truly I say to you, as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life." Everyone here knows that we have the fortune that we know what went on beforehand, before Job. Everything was taken from him, and we know how it ends. But isn't it normal to see that here Job was back under at his time, and here Jesus is explaining to him the same stuff's still going on. Is it still going on today? Absolutely. Still goes on. We see it all the time, people in need. And if we have the opportunity to help that person in need and we choose not to, that puts us in the wrong space. Verse 9, it talks about widows and orphans. He actually says, "You have sent widows away empty, and the arms of the fatherless were crushed." He is not treating people right. That's what he's getting accused of. And you got to put yourself in Job's spot, thinking, why are you telling me this? That would be me. When I read the Bible, I try to put myself in that spot. How would I react? We talk about the patience of Job. Would it be a different book if it was the patience of Tom? Probably 30 years ago, it would have been a lot different book with my patience, the lack of patience I had then. It impresses me how Job can sit there and take this and come back with them. Okay, 12 through 14. "Is not God high in the heavens? See the high stars, how lofty they are. But you say, what does God know? Can he judge through the deep darkness? Thick clouds veil him so that he does not see, and he walks on the vault of heaven." Eliphaz here is accusing Job of saying that God doesn't see what's going on, is going on. He's accusing Job. He's putting words into Job's mouth. Has anybody ever put words into your mouth? Yep. It happens a lot, doesn't it? And this is what's going on here. And like I say, it goes back to Job sitting here and listening, and then he'll respond to it later on. He's putting the words into his mouth that Job didn't really say. And we have to realize at this point that even though the three friends, I don't know why they get called friends at this point, they started out what would be normal friends, but then to the accusations start flowing out, it makes you wonder. They think because their mindset, we have to realize their mindset is that God only punishes the wicked, and it does it right now. That's why Job's getting punished. That's what we have to keep in the back of our mind. That's their mindset. But also, who's at work behind the three friends at this point, even in the whole book, really, when it comes? Satan, right. Satan's at work. This is the thing that still today we have to be careful of, because Satan plants that seed of doubt in our minds. And it makes us, wonder different things, and that's why we have to be constantly studying the Scripture so we can push those doubts and questions out of our minds. Okay, 15 through 20. "Will you keep to the old way that wicked men have trod? They were snatched away before their time. Their foundation was washed away. They said to God, 'Depart from us.' And what can the Almighty do to us? Yet he filled their houses with good things, but the counsel of the wicked is far from me. The righteous see it and are glad. The innocent one mocks at them, saying, 'Surely our adversaries are cut off, and what they left the fire has consumed.'" Go back, if it's not on that page, go back to chapter 21 and verse 14. They say to God, "Depart from us, we do not desire the knowledge of your ways. What is the Almighty that we should serve him? And what profit do we get if we pray to him? Behold, is it not their prosperity in their hand? The counsel of the wicked is far from me." Sound familiar? This is kind of like Eliphaz's response to that. He is letting him know that at this point, when Eliphaz was listening to him, but at times do we get caught up in hearing what we want to hear? You understand what I'm saying on that? When you ask a question, you got an answer that you want that to be the answer, and you don't get that answer, and then you get upset because that was not the answer you expected. You know, it's Eliphaz is letting Job know that he heard him, but he's using it against him. He's not hearing what Job had actually said. Verse 19, it says he's accusing Job of getting what he deserves because all three felt Job had sinned against God. Do you see yourself sometimes getting caught up in a situation and then you step back out of it and you see it in a totally different light? Because when you sometimes get upset, when you lose your patience, you don't typically have a good response to it. You know, what's the thing they used to tell you as a kid? Stop and what? Count to what? 10, right. Count to 10. Why? Is that good knowledge? Can be at times. To me, I guess Colton's in here, so I can say it now, but he's old enough, you know, he's 23, almost 24. Do we have a different relationship when he's now at 23 than when he was, say, 5? Yeah. That's why some of us older folks that we see younger folks enjoy it because they grow up so quick, is because I look back and see him at 23, but I still remember her as a 5. It's natural to be falsely accused of something, and he's heard me tell this story before. Since he's here this morning, I wasn't going to use it, but I can tell you, I can see his look on his face. He's like, you don't have to throw me under the bus. But anyhow, this is exactly how something happens. I can remember him coming home from kindergarten one day, and he was mad. I mean, he was genuinely mad. If you know Colton does not get mad. He's pretty even keeled as they come. He takes after my dad. He does not take his patience after his dad. He takes it after his grandpa Eddy, and really his grandpa Ware. But anyhow, he come home, he's mad because he'd gotten in trouble. Colton had never gotten in trouble at this point, you know, and stuff like that. Because the kid in front of him was turning around, talking to him, or vice versa. I can't remember. And if you ask him the name afterwards, he'll be able to tell the kid's name. I can remember the name because he was so upset. And he was looking for sympathy from Dad and Mom, I'm assuming. You know, and I said, well, Colton, I said, that's for the time that you didn't get caught, me being me. I said, that's for all the times that you didn't get caught, that you got something happened today. And that was not the response he wanted, but that was the response I give to him. And here we go back to Job. Job is saying that I have stayed away from the wicked. They don't counsel me. But here Eliphaz is saying, well, the wicked don't counsel you because you are wicked. Now, how would you take that in Job's spot? It would, to me, I would be a little upset at it. Okay. Anybody have any that I've rambled on here for a little bit longer? Go right ahead, Kurt. Right. Mm-hmm. The thing that we don't see too, and this is where my mind plays into it, is I use sarcasm a lot. It is hard to put sarcasm in text messages. There's a reason why on a lot of text messages that I send out, I'll put LOL. And that doesn't mean what love you a lot. Some people just laugh out loud. Why? Because you want that person on the other end to know what you're saying, right? I do joke a lot. If you don't know that, I tell people at work, you can't, take me serious 90% of the time because I don't mean no harm, but it's just my personality. Other people aren't that. There's people down at work that are dead serious 100% of the time. There's nothing wrong with that. That is them, and that's how they deal with it. But by saying that, we just wonder the tone here because we read it. You can use some, I'm no English major or something like that, the notations. You just wonder what kind of tone that Job and his friends had. And like Kurt mentioned, they're throwing out false accusations. When we go back to the start of the book, since he said that, if we go still start to the back, what did Eliphaz say about Job then? Was it negative? Started out pretty positive, right? Because Job was considered someone in his realm. Of course, the friends, I don't know how close, and we don't know because of where it says they come from. That's kind of some of the stuff that I looked at earlier on when we started studying to see how far they would have really traveled. There's no definite, but they knew Job. Why else did the three of them come to console him? Because they respected him, right? It goes from respect to disagreement pretty quick, doesn't it? And it can happen. It happens every day. I'm sure the business world, which I'm no part of, I guarantee you there's disagreements every day because I shouldn't say I'm not in the business world, but I don't have an office job. Is there disagreements every day? Yes, there's disagreements on how to get stuff done, but we're typically adults and we come to an agreement and push through it. These guys are just throwing accusations towards Job and seeing which one sticks, basically. If you want to know when your spaghetti's done, what do, Tracy? You throw it up the cabinet. Does everybody know that? No one knew that. I taught her something. Now, what does she do when she's cooking spaghetti? You throw it up. If it sticks, it's done. You guys have never heard tell that. I can't believe you guys have never heard tell that. If you want to know how spaghetti's done, this will be one thing you guys will remember today out of anything from Job. Cook it. When you start seeing it get limp, try to throw it up against the cabinet. It won't stick. But when it's done, you throw it up against the cabinet, your kitchen cabinets. Now, you have to wipe them off, or you ain't going to come to our house and see a bunch of what used to look like spaghetti on the cabinets. You pull it off and wipe it off, clean it, okay? But anyhow, we'll continue on here. I don't know how I got on that topic, but anyhow, verse 21. Agree with God and be at peace. Thereby good will come to you. Receive instruction from his mouth and lay up his words in your heart. If you return to the Almighty, you will be built up. If you remove injustice far from your tents, if you lay gold in the dust and the gold of Ophir among the stones of the torrent bed. First two verses, pretty simple. He's telling Job, obey God, turn back to him. Normally when someone wanders off the Christian pathway, what do? We tell them to turn back to God. Problem here is that's good advice for that when that actually happens, but why is it bad advice here? We're fortunate enough to realize, because we actually have it in the book, that it tells us that Job was being tested. Verse 23 and 24, and this is the one thing reading it, and I didn't see it in the commentaries. I kind of looked at several different ones trying to see what it said, and there might be one out there that I just didn't happen to look at. It says verse 24. It says, if you lay gold in the dust and the gold of Ophir among the stones of the torrent bed, then the Almighty will be your gold and your precious silver. Oh, wait a minute. I read 25 too. Let's talk about gold. Did Job still have money? Eliphaz is telling him to put gold. From trying to look this up, Ophir, if you look back in there, it was considered a region that was rich in gold. I think it was Solomon that they got 400 some talents of gold from there. How generally was wealth realized back then? By how many what you had? What? Not dollar bills, right? George Washington wasn't available yet. Livestock. Right, servants. They were all going except for the ones that come and told him that they were lost, right? He was a man of great wealth. But Eliphaz, I don't have an answer for it, but it made me think, if Eliphaz is time to put gold in, they must not value gold like we do kind of today. More value is placed in livestock. Why do we know that? Because every time we read in the Bible, it talks about livestock. Now, it does talk about some, material wealth as far as, when they were building up. David was conquering and talked about how he would gather up to build the temple, for Solomon to build the temple. But it talks about how much livestock they had. It just hit my mind, too. What happens to when Saul conquered and they told him to utterly destroy? But what did he do? He saved some. Why did he save? He saved the best, right? He was going to give it to God. But what did ultimately he find out? That was better to what? Obey than to sacrifice, right? It's funny with Eliphaz here, talking about him return to God. That's great if he'd fallen away from him. But Eliphaz, with Satan working against him, to say this is how it is. God only punishes. Any bad things happen to the wicked. We know that, and they were dead set for that. And that's where we find the fault, that they're looking at through, instead of rose-colored glasses, they're looking through, blacked out glasses. They're not seeing very good. Okay, 25 through 30. Since I read 25 already, you guys have sound familiar, but we're going to read it again. It says here, then the Almighty will be your gold and your precious silver. For then you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. You will make your prayer to him, and he will hear you, and you will pay your vows. You will decide on a matter, and it will be established for you. And the light will shine on your ways. For when they are humbled, you say, it is because of pride, but he saves the lowly. He delivers even the ones who is not innocent. He will be delivered through the cleanness of your hands. Verse 25, of course, verse 24 talked about gold, turning your gold back over and asking for blessings. It's saying that instead of valuing that materials that you had, but turning back to God, God will be your gold. God's better than gold. That's pretty much easy. They would have known that. That would be, I'm sure that was probably one of the few things at this point they would have agreed on. But all the false accusations are before that. Could it be somewhat considered good advice? Yes, for someone that had done something wrong. But we are fortunate because we have the Bible and the story complete that we know Job did no wrong. That says here, he will hear your prayers. And this is kind of where Eliphaz is probably saying, this is why you're not getting the answers you're looking for, is because God's not going to hear your prayers because you're so wicked. Verse 30 said, because you'll turn back from your wicked ways, you'll be able to help other people who are lost at this point. Right now you can't because you're so wicked, you can't help anybody. You can't even help yourself. So that would have been a issue. John 9:31. Says, we know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Of course, we know this is when the healing of the people, they were accusing God of being, a sinner because he healed on the Sabbath. And so this was this gentleman's defense here. If you turn back to Proverbs chapter 15, I'm going to read just 2 verses out of it. It says, "The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is acceptable to him." Then skip down to verse 29. "The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous." Proverbs, Solomon and stuff like that, it talks about this stuff. But once again, we know to this point, because of the start of the book, that Job's innocent. If he is saying a prayer, God is hearing it. But his 3 friends, so-called friends, do not understand that. It's why Job is having such a hard time explaining it to them. It's so easy for us to get caught up in what we don't know. We try to put words in people's mouth, or we try to look at the evidence. This is why I probably would not be a good trial lawyer, because, like I said earlier, I try to look at it from 2 different vantage points. When we look at both sides of the situation, well, what was this person thinking this time? What was this person thinking this time? If you want to be a good defense lawyer, you see your client's side and their side only, not the evidence against them. This is what Job's friends was doing. They was looking at the apparent seen evidence against him. They did not know what went behind the scenes. It's like when we read the book of Revelation, what ultimately happens in the end? Who wins? Yes, God's side wins. In Job, we know from being Bible students. So what I'm trying to get to say is was Job's friends wrong? Absolutely, for falsely accusing someone without the knowledge. But we have to be careful that we don't just say, "I can't believe they did that," when we leave class today. "I can't believe they did that," when sometimes we're at fault also. That's where we get that, the judging. Now, if we see something happen with our own eyes, we have multiple people that says this is exactly what happened, then you can decipher from it. But all this wickedness that we're talking about in chapter 22, how could Eliphaz have seen any of that stuff? Did it actually happen? False accusations against people can really harm them. That's why we have to be careful about that. And this is what this was. Why do we know this? Because we've got it in our Bible. We know that Job was being tested, so we can look at it through those eyes. But this is why we have to watch when we read this stuff. And we're quick to throw, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, as we say today, under the bus. We have to watch ourselves, because we could also be guilty of that. I think that's part of the things that when we read the Old Testament, we have to try to figure out how we can put that in our lives, not the quick to rush. Okay, anything else on 22 before we start? Yep. Go ahead, Michael. Right. Does anyone in here not know anybody that's miserable? if you've heard any of my devotionals and stuff like that I've spoke about, does anybody work with someone that just seems like they're miserable all the time? Yeah. There's not too many people, I don't think it would, but a gentleman I work with should be happier than he is because of where he's at in life, but he doesn't look at the things that he has, and I think this is where people get miserable. As you said, with talking about God, and he put word in God's mouth, we always think, boy, that person's doing really good in life. They're extremely wealthy and all that stuff. God must love them, and he's really blessing them. This is the mindset that Job's friends have. We look at someone that seems like to have everything together, and we say, boy, I would trade lives with that person. Do you see yourself, and this will be age-based, do you see, I know what I thought was important in life at age 20, now that I'm 51, I don't even care about now. Has anybody else had that same difference? I'm sure most of us had. The older you get, the less things seem important. Do you see yourself worrying about certain things less? These are the things that we have trouble with, and when we read Job, and like I said, when we try to decide, how can we apply this in our lives, we definitely don't want to be rushed to judgment. We got to be patient. Job's the patience of Job. I know if it was me, I would have been ready to 30 years ago to just really, I would be so upset that I would want to know now and demand it. And like Michael said here, he's quick to put words in God's mouth also, and that'll start us into 23, unless anybody else has anything else they want to add to it. Okay, if not, let's start 23. Let's do 1 through 6. It says, Then Job answered and said, Today also my complaint is bitter. My hand is heavy on account of my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat. I would lay my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know what he would answer me and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in the greatness of his power? No, he would pay attention to me. This is one of those parts where I wish I knew if he was being sarcastic. He just got done listening to Eliphaz's false accusations. We know they're false accusations. This is where I would love to know is if Job said, throws his arms up, okay. Would he, verse 2 it says, Today is my complaint is bitter, my hands is heavy on account of my groaning. Job knows that he is not his normal self, right? I don't know if anybody, I don't know how anybody could stay their normal positive self when bad things go wrong. Are there people that handle it better than others? Pretty much, right? It has a lot to do, like the gentleman I talked about earlier on, he's more concerned about what he doesn't have than what he does have. And sometimes we can find ourselves in this. We think, boy, if I just get this, I'll be happy, all right? It happens. Can I say that I've never thought that? Years ago, I would think, boy, if I had this size of house, boy, that'll make me happy. The older I get, the less house I want. And I say that for a reason. Why do I'm going to pick on Bethany at this point. I can remember when we signed up for insurance, and she asked us if we was going to stay in this area. And I said, I plan on building a small house. And she's like, are you serious? And I said, yeah, I'm dead serious. When I talk about building a small house, why do I want to pay taxes on a big house? Why do I want to heat a big house? Why do I want to cool a big house when I don't need a big house? And then she said, well, what happens when the kids come in for holidays? I said, I'll buy them the hotel room. Marietta's got more hotel rooms than they did back then. We look at it as a big house is a status symbol. And there's nothing wrong with having a big house. I'll tell you that if you got a big house, I'm certainly not judging you. Hopefully you've got enough for the big house, but to help someone help you clean it too. So I'm looking at it from my wife's standpoint. That'll be less for her to have to clean too. and stuff like that. We look at stuff totally different. I think the older we get, the more, I'm not going to include myself in this, but the wiser you guys get, the older you get, it does help. I heard that first bell, and to be honest with you, I thought I'd be a lot further along than this. But I've got the gift of gab, unfortunately. Anyhow, verse 3 and 5, to me, this is the natural human response. Job wanted to talk to God and find out exactly what went wrong, right? He knows he didn't do anything wrong, but he's wanting to know, why me? Would anybody not have that question? I know I would. You know, when things start going wrong, do you know anybody out there that really tries, but it seems like their luck's always bad? This is not my saying, but I've heard before, is the only luck that person can have is bad luck? Do you see people, seems like it could be because they're clumsy? I don't know. For some odd reason, sometimes they don't. But they've got this great attitude. Why? Because unlike some people, they realize the blessings they do have, not the blessings that they don't have. That's the positive. Someone told me, I guess a preacher here, I can't tell you who it was, and maybe you guys, some people might tell, I'm not going to say older people, but I'm just going to say some of you people might remember this, but they said your attitude, or your altitude is dictated by your attitude. Whether that was to that person, but your altitude is dictated by your attitude. You have a good attitude, you're going to be up there. If you got that Eeyore, which is what I call that guy at work, he's Eeyore. When the kids got to do the kids' work day, I went and pointed to him. I said, that's a grumpy old man over there. Of course, he was younger than I am now, but I can't remember. Was it you cold or was it cold? It come back, we was eating supper that night at the table. They said, how come you called that guy a grumpy old man? I said, because it's the truth. Now, the guy, we joke around and all that stuff, but I try to tell him, be thankful for what you got. He doesn't realize that. I'm like, you know what? There are so many poor people out there. That's when you take that chance to explain things to people. In in chapter 23, this is where Job's going to take that chance to explain to his friends, as they call them, what it is. What time? All right, let's read verse 7 through 10. See if we can get through that. There an upright man could argue with him, and I would be acquitted forever by my judge. Behold, I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I do not perceive him. On the left hand he is working, and I do not behold him. He turns to the right hand, but I do not see him. But he knows the way that I take. When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold. And next week Kurt will be teaching. Maybe he'll explain this a little bit better than I can. Verse 10. What's it say there? When he has tried me. Does Job at this point realize he's being tested? He's probably got some of an idea that he is. We talked about gold earlier on. When you when you refine gold, what do? You don't put it on ice. What's that? Heat it up, right? And what happens to the impurities? They come to the top, and you get those impurities off of it. Job knows he's being tried, that he's, for some odd reason, he doesn't know. That's why he's wanting to know. And me being me, I would be in the exact same shoes. I'd be wanting to know, why is this happening to me? Why did I lose, my kids? The one thing I thought of is why didn't he lose his wife? Anybody have any idea? I don't either. I'm surprised there isn't. It used to be the joke is what did Adam have to give up for having a wife? What was it? A rib, right? And then the joke was, I wonder what he could have got for an arm and a leg. You guys have never heard that? My goodness, you guys didn't grow up where I did. I tell you. The things that we see different, like I said, the older we get, and I'm going to stop right there and let Kurt start there next week, or he can start at verse 23. When I was a kid, we had VBS. Did you guys, the song Once There Was Wandering Jews, did you guys ever do that song where you scream, wandering Jews, Jews, Jews? This was Tom Eddy as a little kid. I, for the life of me, could not figure out. I thought it was 3 wandering. I have no idea where I got 3 at. But I thought the Jews, they were screaming juice, as in orange juice. And so there would be little Tom Eddy. If I was on the Jews side, I would be screaming juice, juice, juice. No idea. Was I wrong in what the song was? Yes. Did I realize it at the time? No. But we're going to find out here later on, when we get through the book of Job, that the friends are going to find out that they were in the wrong. In the end, that's the good thing, is we get to that point that we find out what happens is wrong, that we were wrong in it. We get to the Judas and Peter. The difference between what they did when they found out they were wrong is Peter repented. Judas hung himself. Peter took the correct route. Judas, you could say he took the easy route, because admitting you're wrong is a hard thing. And we're going to find that out from Job's friends. I'm sure if you were in the friends spot when we get towards the end of the book, that'll be the case for most people. Okay, anything else before we take a short break between now and worship? If not, Kurt will be teaching next week. Be easy on him, because he'll be going under the knife later on that week. So, all right. Thanks.